Continuing of course the role that I've been on of featuring more retro games again on the channel, we are once again jumping back to my personal entry point to playing Forza games way back years ago, Forza Motorsport 2, to another vehicle which of course will be very familiar to any of you who, like me, did play Forza 2, because it's one of those cars that you didn't really even need to want it, you ended up having it anyway. For winning the Super Tuner Challenge, it was a prize car. It is of course another aftermarket tuner car, and the majority, if you've been following, or even if you go through the channel and check out my other Forza 2 videos, most of the cars that we feature, the cars that were not continued after this point until the later games of course, were these aftermarket cars. There were quite a few of these. In fact, there was an unusually high amount of aftermarket RX-7s and aftermarket Integras in Forza 1 and 2. This one was featured in both the first and the second game. The specs are actually totally different in the second game to in the first one. In fact, it's not as strong of a car. In Forza 1 it had about 280 horsepower. In this game it's much more modest. In fact, it's not that much different to a normal RX-7 if you really look at it. 255 horsepower, 218 foot-pounds of torque, 1122 kilos. It has a 50-50 weight split, which is pretty good for a front-engine rear-wheel drive car. Of course, based on the FD RX7, my personal favourite generation. It's a B category car. Again, a downgrade from the first game where it's A4. In this game it's B586 in terms of points, and the price, not that it really matters, is 119,000 credits. Now ultimately, there's not a huge amount that I can say about a lot of these aftermarket cars beyond just the nostalgia of making the video, and to some degree I like making these videos just as a chance to look back on some of our old friends that were left behind. There are certain cars which I know for many of us, definitely myself included, they are cars which we so dearly want to see back in various games. It's almost like there are different eras of cars, and there are some cars which transcend eras and end up being featured in much newer racing games anyway. Look at Gran Turismo 7 for example, with stuff like the Porsche Carrera GT. It's a car which just transcends its age. There are others too, but then there are others which are just kind of stuck in that time period. I think a prime example, ironically given just how massively popular it is in every game that has it, the Chrysler ME412. It's one of the quickest concept cars ever built, one of the most incredibly high potential supercar concepts ever built in terms of performance, and it was featured in a bunch of games at the time. Test Drive Unlimited, Forza had it as well in this second game, and yet it was just left behind. And we kind of have never had it back, even in Forza. This is one of those occasions where it's not like that. I don't find this to be a car that people are clamouring to see back. I'm sure it does have its fans, and doubtless there are some people who would like to see it return, like with the other aftermarket cars, but I just don't really see the need, to be honest, to bring a lot of these ones back, in a similar way to how the more recent Gran Turismo games have kind of done away, really, with a couple of the aftermarket cars like your Mine Skylines and Evos and Spoon and Opera Performance and various other brands that you don't necessarily need in the game anymore now that you have stuff like the livery editor and decent body modifications. Likewise in Forza, I feel like as the community has grown, as liveries have become more creative and more detailed, I feel like a lot of these aftermarket cars can kind of just be replicated. And again, if it was something that were radically different, like for example, I can never recall the pronunciation on most of these cars, but the ABFlug or ABFlug RX7, stuff like that that's a bit more unique. Or, you know, I'm sure you can think of others too. The Top Secret Supra is another prime example. The Veilside Supra is a crazy one visually. Those are genuinely radically different cars, and you can make an argument for those coming back. Other ones like the Aero Gear Honda Integra, or this one, not so much. You could quite easily replicate this car. For many, I think this car falls squarely into the exact same camp as me, and it's the one that I alluded to earlier on. It's one of those cars that you'll see it, you'll go, oh yeah, I remember that from Forza 2, and that's probably about it in terms of the memories that we have. You might have used it for some events, and I'm sure for some people you ended up using it a lot, but for many of us, I think it probably ended up pretty much gathering dust in the garage. So that's pretty much it for this video, just another walk down memory lane to cover a car which was not featured in any of the subsequent Forza games, and there actually are not many more cars for me to talk about in Forza 2. We've covered most of them already, there are only one or two left, and those are, unsurprisingly, also aftermarket tuner cars. So until next time, I'll see you then. Of course, check out tons more Forza content on the channel from all of the games from 1 until now, and of course I'll see you next time with more. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.